Yes, we are back. Tradies, apologies, we're 24 hours late. Mitch Cleary and Sam McClure with your favourite podcast drop of the week. Sam, you've come in off your deathbed. Great to see you. How are you holding up after a pretty rough 48 hours?
Hello, Mitchell. Thank you for hosting and saving some of my voice. You did, however, miss the most important part.
Fuck it. Should we start again?
No.
Oh, just get going into it.
We're not starting again. We're brought to you by the great people at St Andrews Beach Brewery.
This is something that you always do.
This is why I'm the money man. The new brewery at Melbourne Park, the only place to be before a game at the G this season. It's a bit tough for me to be thinking about beer at the moment. I reckon crawled off my deathbed to be here.
I reckon you've got one in you before Carlton Collingwood Friday night. Could you imagine how pumping the St Andrews Beach Brewery will be at Melbourne Park?
Oh, yes.
Get the tram along to Rod Laver Arena. Short stroll to the G.
Yeah, although
they have the fires going out the.
Having said that, Andrew Dillon and Kerry Stokes must be just sitting there, just very disappointed with Carlton's season. It must be affecting crowds and ratings because
you couldn't really turn off what you saw last Thursday night, though.
Well, that's
Carlton,
just
Port Adelaide.
That's
a morbid fascination, as Nick Revolt put it.
Yeah, it's masochistic, isn't it? It's a bit of sadism creeping into viewers if you're watching it for those reasons. No, I am sorry to the tradies community that we are 24 hours late. I have been very, very sick, and I haven't been sick in a long, long time. And it's just reminded me how much of a pussy I am when I am actually sick. Yeah, I am the worst person at dealing with sickness in the world, I reckon.
You crawl into a ball, into a fetal position in bed.
But not only do I do that, I then complain about that. And so, I'm terrible at sitting still. I'm terrible at, not being able to walk diva, not being able to go to the gym, not being able to work. So I turn into this big ball of complaining. And it's no good. I know it's very surprising. I know everyone thought that I'd be a real trooper, you know.
Was it the overwork of the Wimbledon prep that got to you? Because I know last week we finished the show where you had a few short steps on what you had to get through with your Wimbledon prep.
No, I have to micromanage every little bit. So it's all footy until it's Wimbledon. But now we're in Wimbledon. We started last night.
How did you go? I didn't catch it.
Off to it. Well, you would be in the minority, Mitch. You would be in the minority because it's a ratings bonanza.
That's a nice segue. Speaking of ratings, so last week you and I brought up the Agenda Setters v Footy Classified ratings.
You want to do this? You want to go here? Okay.
Well, the numbers speak for themselves, and we're going to an independent source here.
So they do speak for themselves. Yep, I'm happy. I'm happy to talk about this if anyone actually cares.
So we walked out of here last Tuesday, and the ratings usually come through around 9:30.
Yep.
And I was alluded to a tweet from Sports Industry, which do some fantastic work across different numbers and that sort of thing in the sporting landscape on Twitter.
Who writes for them?
I don't actually know who it is. It's just it's someone.
How do you know they do good work?
I see all their content.
I see.
Got financial numbers and annual reports and all sorts of insights.
Right.
But they just share the facts, and the facts were last week that Agenda Setters did 204,000 viewers nationally, and Footy Classified did 165,000 numbers nationally. That is no bias. That is a pure independent figure that was taken. So it was good to see another W for the Agenda Setters last Monday.
So I'm not sure what happens over at 7 and if you guys actually look at ratings that matter. Or
ratings that matter, right.
If you just
if you manipulate, now you're going into you're going into the skew. We're looking at certain demographics.
So can you just read those numbers out again?
204
Yep.
beats 165 most days of the week.
Yeah, so those numbers are 100% accurate. Can I just for the listeners that actually have brains, Footy Classified does not go to air in New South Wales and Queensland. Do you know why that is?
Because they're not footy states.
Thank you. And because they have their own NRL show that goes to air. So when you're comparing national numbers, you're comparing you may as well be comparing apples and oranges. They're not the same thing, Mitchell.
There's a gap of 39 there. You can't tell me there's 39,000 people watching in New South Wales and Queensland that would make up that gap.
So what I can tell you is that for the first 14 weeks of the year, Footy Classified was beating Agenda Setters nationally, even though it goes to air in 2 less states.
Yeah.
So if you actually want to compare things that are even, I'm happy to to show you the Victorian ratings from last night. I don't know why you're laughing. Where are they?
There's a gap of 39. It doesn't go to New South Wales and Queensland. There is not 39,000 people that would watch both shows in those markets.
So Footy Classified last night, this week rated 88,000 in Victoria.
Yeah.
It rated 57. Then the Agenda Setters rated 57,000. So what's that? A 50% win?
Yep. And you throw in Perth and Adelaide. I haven't done the numbers fast. Anyway, I just wanted to point out that it was off the back of our chat last week. An hour later, the numbers came through.
And so, again, like, you're just guessing about New South Wales and Victoria. I actually have the figures in front of me because I know facts are hard at 7. So 52,000 people watched Agenda Setters in Queensland alone.
Jeez, we're big up there. Is that legitimately the number?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll stand corrected then. So last week, there was 52,000 people.
I don't like getting drawn into this because it makes me sound like I'm being defensive, and like F1 teams don't get defensive about V8 supercar teams. I know that both have four wheels, but they compete in completely different ways.
Maybe if there's such an appetite for footy in Queensland, New South Wales, that Footy Classified should be taken into.
I'm
those
just saying.
markets.
So the next time that you read an article that's clearly been planted by someone.
That's not planted. That were the raw numbers.
The next time that you read an article that talks about national numbers, just remember this conversation. National numbers don't make sense because Footy Classified doesn't go to air in 2 states.
Yeah, the 2 states that watch the least amount of footy.
Did you just?
That's what I'm
fall
saying.
over and knock your head?
Maybe Footy Classified should explore Queensland if they're the numbers that Agenda says.
We don't need to because the Channel 9 has this great sport called the NRL that goes to air in Queensland and New South Wales. Have you not heard of State of Origin?
There's 4 channels that you can put these shows on.
Yeah,
Anyway,
I think Channel 9's going just fine.
Yeah,
pretty comfortable.
And the new show over at 7's doing pretty well too.
Is it?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, every number I just gave you would suggest that it isn't.
Okay, except the number that matters, and that was the number we mentioned off the top.
But that's the number that doesn't make sense because it's not even. Like Real Madrid have never won the English Premier League either. Oh, wait, because they're not in that league. Happy to have the ratings debate with you any time. But don't bring a knife to a gunfight.
Nah, that...
Jeez, I tell you what, the bronchitis has lifted the last couple of minutes. I've been cured.
I would hazard a guess and say that those Queensland numbers must be a different pool because...
I see. Now the ratings are inaccurate. Stop digging. Put the spade down. Let's talk about trades.
Anyway, good to see that we're actually big in tradies in Queensland. So,
are we?
Yep.
Huge. Wow. I tell you what, there's nothing. The one ratings you can't dispute is how good tradies go. You can't dispute that.
Take us through the article you wrote on the weekend because you got your whiteboard here. You've asked for about 4 different whiteboards, and I saw the St Kilda whiteboard getting a run in your article. Mason Wood and his partner and at the house they run.
So Mason Wood and his partner Michaela, who live in a house in East Malvern, who's owned by which is owned by a very senior AFL figure who asked not to be identified.
Who?
Well, I can't identify him because he asked specifically not to be identified.
Are they St Kilda?
They have a connection to St Kilda. Right. That's all I'll say. But they're currently at another AFL club. That's all I'll say. So they have taken in. I think 7 young St Kilda players over the last few years. And the current house is obviously those 2, Angus Hasty, Liam O'Connell, who's from Cork in Southern Ireland, and also Alex Taru, the Flying Viking, who, geez, Mitch, doesn't he look a player?
Look good on the weekend.
Early days. And they've got their own whiteboard, which Michaela and Mason put together, which is basically the chores. Every week. If you don't do your allotted chore for the week, you pay $50 into the pool, which goes to having people over for dinner and, going out for a bite to eat, that sort of stuff. So anyway, look, it has been pointed out to me by several people that it was a story very unlike me. And when I asked why, they said it was very positive and wholesome. Fluffy. Yeah.
What came over you last week? Is that why you're sick? Your body, your immune system was like, hey, what's this fluff that I just...
Now, I'm not saying this is causation. I'm just giving you the timeline. I started feeling sick about 10 minutes after the final siren between Port Adelaide and Carlton on Thursday night. I'm not saying it's related, but maybe watching the Blues has made me sick. Made a lot of people sick.
Where to for the boy? Are we going there? Anything else we want to get to off the top?
I'm happy to go straight into Carlton if you
go
like
for it. Because I've got a few. I'm going to add maybe one. I'm just working out whether I had a second to the whiteboard this week.
It's that time of the year for Carlton where chaos ensues, not just internally, but what about externally? I love some of the theories around, okay, how do we fix Carlton? And one that's been thrown up was we'll trade Cripps. Goodness me. Who said that, by the way?
I don't know. Was it one of the Fox shows?
Oh, it's Jordan Lewis.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Also known as Taz. We know why Taz? He was called Taz in his Hawthorn days because they thought that he looked like Chris Tarrant.
Jordan Lewis.
Goes by Taz.
Doesn't.
Not sure if he wanted that out there
No
publicly.
striking resemblance to me.
Oh, no, there's a bit. Very, 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 very good player, Jordan Lewis.
What the oath?
I don't agree that trading your captain would be the way out of this. But I understood his point, which was at this time when everyone's underperforming, when they're clearly not going to play finals, when they want to get a result, everyone and anything should be on the table. And I don't disagree with that. And the point that he made was that Lance Franklin left Hawthorn and they were okay. But
he wasn't the cultural cultural, not the right fit. He wasn't the leader and the captain. You know, Buddy was never in a leadership position at the Hawks. He was never the guy that everyone followed. He was the locker room, maybe, you know, one that everyone idolised, but he wasn't necessarily the leader, come with me guy.
they were also the best team in the comp when he left.
Yeah, but they had Luke Hodge.
That's what I'm saying.
They had these guys.
But they were at sort of the peak of their powers, both from a list perspective and from a tactical perspective. Would that be fair?
Oh, yeah.
Like Clarko was at the cutting edge of the game.
Yeah.
You know, those 3 flags they won in a row, I think, and Jared Healy used to do this a lot on the couch when that show was absolutely flying. He changed the way they played every single year. So I don't agree that Carlton are in a similar position.
The thing is, if you talk about ripping up the lists and going back to the well, that's a 5-6 year build that we've just seen Carlton go through to get to this point. So they've gone and spent their money on Adam Saad. They've gone and spent their money on Zach Williams as a free agent. They went and got Chera. They've just given him a 5-year extension. The list build has been going on for the last 5 or 6 years to get to this point. You've got your prime players and your spine that we always talk about, Wiedering, Cripps, Walsh, De Koning, Mackay and Curnow, all in that perfect 24 to 30-year age bracket. It's to rip it up now, and I know you've got a comparison you want to get to, but it would be ripping it up for another 5-year build, which they just don't have the ability to do.
So that's the other thing that I wanted to talk to you about. There seems to be this rhetoric stemming out of the last couple of weeks, which is, oh, well, we're fucked. We got to start again. Oh, the Blues, oh, no, they had their premiership window. Now it's over. Well, where are the facts that back that up? I mean, that's just...
So they're going into this year, they were 8th for age in the league and 8th for experience. So they are right in the window.
And they will remain that way, round one.
For a year or two. I don't think it tips much more than that.
Yeah, I think they've got a decent run at it, to be honest.
For how long?
Oh, probably. I think they've got another three-year window, I would suggest.
As we spoke about last week, if you look at Walsh, who was born in 2000, the rest of the list from 2001 onwards, the 24 and unders, there's not a heap there.
But Mitch, who's top of the ladder?
Collingwood.
Yeah. How are they going for that sort of age?
Nick Dacos goes all right. I think Bo McCreary sits in that window.
I mean, you've gone from Nick Dacos to Bo McCreary. That's
Bo McCreary's a pretty good player.
Big jump.
Oh, Nick Dacos is in a league of his own.
Yeah. Anyway, can I just as an exercise at 2:15 this morning, having just gotten home from Wimbledon and watching a little bit of Yellowstone.
A direct flight from London.
He's become like a comedian all of a sudden, Mitch.
He's taken the hosting role and ran with it.
He has. Hey, so Collingwood's last match in 2021, I think this is round 13, last match under Nathan Buckley.
Yeah.
Right, this is their team.
That was the SCG for the Freeze MND game.
Yes. Yeah, against Melbourne.
Yep.
Yep.
COVID.
This is the team. Bianco, Cameron, Crisp, Jay Dacos, DeGoey, Elliott, Hoskin, Elliott, Max Lynch, Madgen, Maynard, Main, McCreary, Myercheck, Moore, Nathan Murphy, Noble, Pendlebury, Poulter, Quaynor, Rantal, Roughhead, Sidebottom, Josh Thomas.
Josh Thomas.
Now, they had quite a few injuries that they were dealing with, so take that into account.
Grundy was out that day from memory.
This
Lynch
is
played a good game.
round 1 next year, first game under Craig McRae. Taylor Adams, who was obviously on the list earlier but injured. Bianco, yes. Tyler Brown, Mason Cox, Crisp, Jay Dacos, and Dacos.
Those are right.
Yep, handy. DeGoey, Elliott, Ginnivan, Grundy, Ollie Henry, Howe, who's injured, Lipinski, Madgen again, McCreary, Myercheck, Moore, Noble, Pendlebury, Quaynor, Sidebottom, and then Tom Wilson. So outside of N. Dacos, who, like, not a drastically different team.
No.
And Collingwood under Nathan Buckley in his last year finished 17th, and Collingwood under Craig McRae in year 1 made a prelim.
Yep.
So things can change quickly at footy clubs if they get the right people in. The whole let's nuke the list and start again is not only a bit emotional, it's just flat out wrong. They don't need to grab a chainsaw to the list, maybe a little scalpel and do a little, tiny little bit of nip and tuck. But there's nothing drastic that needs to be done.
Yeah.
That's the good news for Carlton people. Now, I don't think De Koning leaving is going to be a positive. They're going to end up with a shit pick and a shit draft. So,
Yeah,
I'm not sure.
Would have been
how you riddle me.
much better to get a top 10 pick in last year's draft.
I'm not sure. Unless they end up with Darcy Cameron, I'm not sure how you riddle me. It's a good thing. But if I was Darcy Cameron playing at Collingwood,
Yeah.
and there was a chance that I could play for Carlton next year, I would run so far in the other direction. It's not funny.
Yeah.
Like Darcy, whatever the money difference is, it would not be worth your happiness.
I've spoken on this show about the team you supported as a kid, the brothers at clubs.
Oh, God.
What about if your best mate is the captain of the club? Darcy Cameron and Patrick Cripps are joined at the hip, both WA boys. Cripps, they were in each other's wedding party. No, Darcy Cameron's not. Cameron was in Cripps' wedding party.
Okay. All right, let's do a bit of role play here.
I'm just putting it out there. That's a big lure for guys.
No. You be Cripps and I'll be Cameron. Okay, and you're trying to get me to Carlton.
Hey, Darcy.
Hey, Cripper, how are you, mate?
We just lost Tom de Koning. Around $1 million's gone out of the cap. How would you like to come over for $850 a year and lead the ruck, play in front of big crowds at the G?
Well, I already do that.
Yep. What about a bit more? What about $200,000 extra a year that you're not getting at the moment at the Pies?
How much of that
you're one of the best ruckmen in the competition. You need to be paid for what you're worth.
How much of that extra $200,000 would I have to spend on psychological help to deal with?
Come on. You've got your flag. How about you come over and play with your old mate? We'll throw it back to old times together. You've already got your flag.
Yeah, I actually...
You get September off.
Cripper, I love you, but I actually enjoy playing for good teams.
We can go on holidays in September every year.
No, you're right. Maybe that is a lure. I don't know, but geez, it's a big thing to do to your career.
Yeah,
he's on a pretty good thing at the Pies.
So I just looked at that Collingwood comparison you made. So this is the team that you spoke about in the team that made the prelim.
Oh, yeah.
in Craig McRae's.
That's a cool comparison. Yeah, do that.
So these are the under 24s at that age group for that Collingwood team. Josh Dacos, Nathan Kruger, Isaac Quaynor, Nathan Murphy, Bo McCreary, Trent Bianco, Jack Ginnivan, Nick Dacos. And have a look at the under 24s that played for Collingwood, for Carlton on the weekend.
Oh, no.
Flynn Young, Ollie Hollins, Jesse Motlop, Cooper Lord, Billy Wilson. So I'm a bit more of the view that it's probably only a year or two for this Carlton side. If they get a top 10 pick in this year's draft, we know all the talk from the recruiters is that this year's draft isn't super strong. They're going to need to find some young talent, or this is going to fall away pretty quick. The other thing too for me is just that middle core of guys. Chera, 5-year deal. How's he performing?
Yeah,
Williams, we see him in dispatches.
What's Chera on, though?
I don't claim to know exactly,
I
but
think it starts with an 8, doesn't it?
I think the remodel deal would be I would have guessed 7s.
Oh, well, then it doesn't matter.
But we spoke a few weeks ago that Geelong only have 4 players on $800,000. If it's in 7 to 800,000, he's got to be performing like he's going to be finishing top 5 in BNFs, doesn't he?
I think
Blake Acres.
Seven's the new 5.
Blake Acres hasn't done a heap since those finals performances. The middle core of guys. Mitch McGovern is so hot and cold.
When Chera was playing at Freo, tell me I'm lying. Wasn't he was regarded across the competition as an excellent two-way runner?
Adam Chera?
Yeah.
Yeah, and that was early days at Carlton.
What's happened?
I don't watch it that closely to look at his two-way running now, but is it completely dropped off, has it?
He just doesn't seem to have the... I don't know.
You'd have to ask whether he's lost faith in his body.
Yeah.
Or that high-powered running. Like he spends a lot of time in the off-season.
I'm adding someone to the whiteboard, and it's not because I think he's going to leave Mitchell, but I just want to talk about him mainly. And
he's going to the whiteboard?
He's out of contract.
Oh. Silvagni. In talks on an extension.
Yeah, I think... Okay, so here's my first little gripe. It's 2025. Like, every man and their dog has Twitter, right?
Except you.
It's no longer 1999.
Do you have Twitter?
No. It's no longer 1999. So I think we can stop with the news stories if someone started a conversation about a contract extension. I think that's fair.
So my report last night on Jamie Elliott in talks on a 2-year deal is not worth reporting?
That's up to you. I'm just saying. I don't want to know anything until people are signed now, because it's kind of a moot point. Jack hasn't signed.
Yep.
So he's still a free agent. Mm-hmm. Sounds like he's going to sign, right? I think that there's an argument that he's their most important player.
Said that.
This is not the first time you've said this. We laughed you out of the room last time.
No, I think every time I watch this bloke, he plays literally every position.
He's playing sore at the moment and has been. Well, he's going to miss the next
fortnight.
fortnight.
He tries his absolute guts out every time he plays.
How can he be their most important player when they didn't know where to play him for 8 years?
This feels like a trap. I'm not going there. I think you're answering your own question.
He did his knee last year. He's 5 games before that, he was in and out of the VFL.
So, again, I'm being lured into a bear trap.
Come here.
Jack Silvagni ever considered to play in the VFL is the height of embarrassment, to be honest. The height of embarrassment.
But this is when they were rolling with 2 rucks and had Curnow and Mackay firing.
Yeah, I think that there's an argument that he's their most important player and he's out of contract.
He's no more important than Wiedering, De Koning, Curnow. I wouldn't have him in the top 6 most important of the Blues.
I think that's wrong.
Oh.
I think my point is a slight exaggeration. But
Tony
I think
Cochran-
your point is wrong.
Tony Cochran said opinions are like arseholes. Everyone's got one.
I love that, man.
So he's going on the whiteboard.
What do you think he's worth?
On the open market for a player who's 27, turning 28, He has had body concerns, so he's going to miss the next fortnight with this groin injury that he's carried for the last month. Played through pain.
A bit like me today, playing through pain.
He's sounding progressively better as the show goes on.
Well, the ratings conversation lifted me.
700 a year.
I'd be paying him more.
Does he play enough?
Maybe that might be the only thing. Like, imagine Jack Silvagni playing at Collingwood.
Yeah, he'd be perfect for them right now.
He's only 27.
He's only 27. He's got 7 more years left.
Yep.
Like, it's so funny that
700 is not to be sneezed at, by the way. 700 grand a year.
Well, sort of is, though, in the context of
Well, the average wage is just over 500 now. So I'm saying you're paying him above average.
Yeah, but he's well above average.
Yeah, but he's missed a couple of games early in the year. He's going to miss a couple more.
It's just funny that his father is offering Tom De Koning 1.7. He's offering, and the thought of Tom De Koning being $1 million a season better player than Jack Silvagni is laughable.
What would his father have thought sitting in the crowd on the weekend with his wife Jo, watching Tom De Koning run around and get beaten by Dante Vicentini and Jordan Sweet?
I don't think that would have worried Stephen.
We're done with the boys' chat?
I hope so. Because it's making me feel worse.
Maybe Harry Mackay's only a week away from going on my whiteboard.
Oh, boy.
Just need to do a bit more work on that, but he's not far away.
Okay. All right.
Speaking of Stephen Silvagni, so he flew last week to Adelaide to watch the Blues get pumped in a list that he largely put together. So that would have been tough viewing. Tom De Koning was running around there, the man that he's offered the big cash to. But he was also in town to meet with Ben Williams, who is the manager of Nazai Wanganeen Miller. Ben is Adelaide-based and has got a lot of big Adelaide-based clients that have gone on to stay in SA.
Who else has he got?
Connor Rosie, Jack Lukosius, Isaac Heaney.
Isaac?
I've got a list here if you want to run through some more.
No, that's fine.
I'm going to make the most of this list that I put together. Jason Horn-Francis. Who else has he got?
He's got some big players.
Naz, Errol Goulden.
Got some big players.
Logan McDonald.
You can stop now.
And they had a meeting late in the week around Nazai's future. Now, off the back of that, I was waiting for the phone to ring from either the Ben Williams side of things, Nazai, or the Saints to inform their clubs chasing Naz that they were out of the race. But that is yet to come. So they've had a chat. There's positivity out of the Saints camp, but as you've said earlier, until the contract is signed, nothing is official, and those clubs are still waiting to hear if they're in or out of if they're out of the race. So Matt Rowell, to use an example recently, Tom Petro flies up to meet with Matt Rowell on a Thursday a couple of weeks ago. Everyone gets the call Friday, Saturday. Hey, thanks for your interest in Matt. He's now deciding to commit his future with the Suns. We'll be signing a contract in the next week or two. Then he puts pen to paper on a 2-year deal. Sauce has the meeting with Ben Williams, and there's nothing of the like. So now we wait and still sit here waiting to see if the Power and the Crows get that phone call. Hey, thanks, but no thanks. And that's yet to come.
What do you think happens? I need a percentage.
My gut's always been that he'll stay at the Saints for 2 years. He's into year 4 now. So 2 years would take him to year 6 at the Saints. 4 years would take him to free agency. That's still my gut. But until he's signed, until those clubs get told they're out of the race, anything's possible. Where are you leaning on it?
Yeah, I feel like it's a 2-year at the Saints.
Yeah.
But I'm only at 65%.
Yeah.
I'm not huge on it yet.
Speaking of 2-year deals, so Miles Bergman is committed to Port Adelaide on a 2-year deal. They're in talks to finalise that extension. His manager, John Mason from Capital Sports, was in town to watch the game on the weekend as well, and then had the meeting to commit Miles Bergman's future. Those clubs chasing him, the Dogs, the Bombers, the D's, the Saints. Everyone's been told, thanks for your interest in Miles, but he'll be committing and staying with the Power on a 2-year deal. He's in year 6 right now. That 2 years will take him to free agency. Year 8, which the money will come even bigger again in 2027.
Did I hear Cal Toomey say during the week that he's on $1 million?
It would be around that, yep.
Am I missing something?
But you just said that $1 million is probably the old 800.
Yeah, but am I missing something with Miles?
Oh, he's a pretty good player.
Is he?
Yeah.
Yeah, they moved him into the midfield, but it's only a small sample size.
Yeah.
He looked very good on the week.
I wouldn't pay him $1 million. I'd have him in the 800 to 900,000
But it is
range.
a shock to hear $1 million.
Yeah.
I think if you heard Miles Bergman, you would
Well, I watch Port. I don't watch him and go, he's $1 million player.
But
Yeah.
don't forget there'll be $61 million players in the space of 2 years. He'd be in the top 60 players in the comp right now.
This feels like our Dan Houston argument from last year.
He's probably got a few more tricks than Dan.
How's Houston going at the Pies?
He's going right.
Is he?
He's not all Australian form. Nothing like he was at the Power. But Miles probably has got a few more strings to his bow than Dan Houston. Houston was a pure half-back. Miles has shown in the last 6 weeks he can go into the midfield and go toe-to-toe with Dawson, Cripps, like we saw on the weekend.
It's been like a month.
Yeah. Zach Williams was signed as a midfielder off one game, wasn't he?
Oh, God. Why did you bring what? And I'm sick again.
The thing is, it's only on the books for 2 years, isn't it? So it's not like it's going to completely
True.
Yeah.
say it's a lot
And
of
Port have
money.
always been pretty good at managing their cap. Can I add one to my whiteboard?
Oh, please. I was going to ask you about a couple others.
Changkuoth Jiath is going on from the Hawthorn Football Club. 26-year-old. He signed for the next 2 years at the Hawks.
My boy, you're putting him on the whiteboard.
Been in and out of the side this year. And I think if he's not a regular in Hawthorn's side to finish the last 8 weeks heading into finals, clubs will come hard again for this guy who had a bit of interest a couple of years ago when he signed at the Hawks.
I'm a big yes about CJ.
But they've got Impey, Amon, Weddle when he's fit, across that half-back line, Scrimshaw. It's probably the one part of the ground half-back where they're pretty flush for options. And not that the cap's an issue at the Hawks, but they might need picks to go after a Butters or a Reed or some of these guys. And now that Bergman has signed at the Power or is committed to signing, like we spoke about a few weeks ago when Rao signed, and it brings in the guys like Warple and these guys, with Bergman as these halfbacks, when they start to get locked away, I think clubs will look next rung under for a player like CJ and think he might be gettable from the Hawthorn Footy Club.
What's he worth?
Trade pick-wise?
Yep.
Mid-20s,
Okay, so
late 20s
quite high.
in this draft. Yep.
Any clubs that he'd suit?
No, I think there'd be plenty. I think the Dogs, with the fact that Fraser and Richards were sort of seen as halfbacks, have gone in the midfield.
Yeah, I like him.
The Dogs had a big interest in Miles Bergman. I think the Ds, if Rivers eventually becomes a mid, Salem is not getting younger, not getting quicker. I think the Ds could suit a player like that. I think Sydney had an interest a couple of years ago in CJ. You know, what happens with Jake Lloyd, Ollie Florence a bit on the outer. And the Essendon Footy Club were into Miles Bergman as well. And I think he'd suit the half-back line at the Bombers too.
I like CJ as a player. I think he's dynamic. I think he can be played in multiple positions. He's a great clubman, very well respected. Tell you who's not a CJ fan. Research assistant Dan.
Really?
No.
He's a Hawks man.
Big Hawks man.
What, doesn't he?
Not a CJ guy.
Okay.
What is it?
I think he thinks he butchers it.
Sometimes he runs too quick, and he's almost running too quick for his own good then.
Yeah, but you got to know how to utilise those guys.
That's what I mean. Like he's running too quick and then he can't dispose of it when he's running.
Also, your pronunciation of his name was perfect.
Changkuoth Jiath?
Yep. Jiath. Not Jiath. Jiath.
Yeah. So you coached him at under 18 level, school level?
School level, school footy. He was in the same school team as Bailey Smith and Latham Vandermeer.
Right. The Bailey would be what, year or two younger?
No, I think they're the same. Maybe a year younger.
Yeah.
Maybe 1 year younger. Yep.
Yeah.
But he had a lot of raw talent as a teenager. Like the sort of guy that would jump half a metre higher than, the kid next to him. You just see he had that raw ability. He's done well to carve out a pretty meaningful AFL career. Okay, so CJ goes up.
Can I just talk about Harley Reed too?
Oh, no.
Because there was a sighting.
Sam has left the conversation.
Is he on the whiteboard?
No. Oh, are you? You're baiting me again. This is
honestly, I thought he was. I'm putting him on.
I tell you what, I do this and there's a fucking nuclear explosion, and Mitch does this and Scotty doesn't even blink.
Yeah,
I'm locked in to think what social clip I can cut out.
Well, it can't involve me because I didn't fucking say anything.
So some
see
eagle-eyed people out there that just inform you of things.
Okay.
Matt Rosa, former West Coast player, took his young kids to watch his former side play Collingwood on the weekend. Harley Reed was running around for West Coast.
Okay, that's not particularly...
No, it's not. It's not. I just thought it was interesting.
Matt Rosa now, of course, the Essendon list manager.
Sorry, I should have explained that.
Yeah.
The Bombers...
People just walking around... Listeners walking around the town being like, who the fuck is Mitch talking about Matt Rosa?
Yes, Matt Rosa has replaced Adrian Dodoro.
Mitch.
If you've got any other sightings of any other random AFL players going to watch their former team, let me know.
AFL players.
So Matt Rosa has replaced Adrian Dodoro as the list manager of the Bombers, and he was there on Saturday night to watch the Eagles and Pies. Now, it's not uncommon.
Breaking news, hang on. List manager watches.
That's
game.
why it wasn't a 7 News story. I thought it was more for the tradies community. I'm not going to lead the news with this.
It feels like a 7 News story, actually, that one.
No, we go big with our news stories.
Okay.
So I've got the Bombers right in that conversation. Not saying he's leaving this year, but I think he deserves his spot on the whiteboard at round 18 because there is no talk about him extending at the Eagles. Just like there's not any talk about him leaving this year, but I think he's well and truly deserves his spot there.
Can I ask you a question now that you've opened up Pandora's box? What is the deal? What is the deal that makes West Coast turn their head about Harley at the end of the year? So let's just say right now, which we believe to be the truth, West Coast are adamant that he's, if he's not going to sign a contract extension, he will be playing round 1 for us next year as he goes into the last year of his first contract.
Yep.
But what's the one offer that gets them going, oh, hang on, we better consider this?
So Essendon, just as an example, have picks 5 and 6 this year. They got their own, and Melbourne's. I think it's those two plus a future first that would get West Coast half thinking about it.
I think you'd have to do that deal at your West Coast, wouldn't you?
5 and 6 this year in a weaker draft.
Yeah, but
they're still top end talent.
Yeah, but they're going to end up with 1 and 2.
Yeah. So you can almost do a Richmond.
Well, but
and go and just reset your whole footy club.
And my two boys down the bottom there, Norton and English. Oh. No, I'm just saying if you end
Have
up.
you had much feedback on that since you dropped it a few weeks ago?
Who would I have feedback from?
People at the Eagles, people in the Norton English camp.
I don't speak to a whole lot of people at the West Coast Eagles. And no, I haven't.
You've always had the rule that if you wanted to find someone's phone number in a day, you can, anyone in the country. So if they wanted to track your number down, it'd be pretty easy to do so.
I think my number would be very easy to find.
Yeah.
Not sure a lot of people call it.
042. Yeah, what do you reckon for Harley would get the Eagles to at least turn sideways for a player who's got a year to run on his contract for 26?
Yeah, I saw well, no, I think you nailed it. I saw Kane on the agenda setters played some vision on the weekend about his concerns. Kane's been on this from very early about his work rate and stuff.
Yeah.
Which is really interesting.
He had a poor pre-season.
Yep. If you end up with 1, 2, 5 and 6
and a future first,
it enables you to pick the eyes out of a draft, but also, go after a senior player. That's how you really expedite rebuilds, which is what they didn't seem to understand when they took him and only him at pick 1.
Yeah.
And basically the only talk around Harley Reed since they've drafted him is when he's coming back to Victoria.
I guess the only thing with that is if you do go to the draft again and you get a Willem Dersma, he's going to have links back here. So the conversation will be, it's like the Adam Cherry conversation.
Felt like a drive-by for Willem.
No, but it's like the Harley thing that he arrives at West Coast with an early pick. We're all talking about when he's going to come back. It's the same for the next Victorian kid they draft. So it's not necessarily if you go to the draft and find a Victorian, you're set for the future. Same as Adam Cherry. We were talking about him from the moment he signed at Freo.
I want to ask you about a couple of other whiteboardies.
Yep. Bond?
Okay, why? Yeah, sure. Why hasn't he signed?
It's round 17. You said 2 weeks ago, if he hasn't signed by next week, I'll have an update on this. Or you'll have mail to drop or info to take us.
No, didn't I just say that? I'm not sure what I said, to be honest. This is Scott's department. It's not my department to keep track of things I say.
I just know
Social media usually does that for you.
Does it? Oh, good.
Just know overall there were murmurings that maybe on his big milestone day maybe, or milestone weekend maybe, there'd be some news, but nothing has popped up.
I've got a theory. So Bevo signed. I don't think Bont wanted to be seen as a package deal. I think he was, he's his own man, Bont. He didn't want to be Bevo signed. Bont straight in. And it's Libba's 250th this week. I don't think he would want to be seen to be taking the spotlight of Libba.
He should have signed by now. It's just a bit strange. For me, anyway. Just a bit strange. Bailey Fritsch.
Yep.
Seems quite a few people are talking about him now. Interesting. My man Lordo said on Classified that you wouldn't get much for him.
It's hard to argue with that.
Oh, geez.
His currency isn't super high.
No, I understand that, but he kicks goals.
Which clubs? Have you got a club? Are you linking him anywhere yet?
No, not yet. I'm waiting. 163 games, 270 goals. As a guy who's only 188 centimetres. He's my height.
Are you 188?
188.
Did you play smaller?
Oh, you've never seen me play.
Thanks for the shout out on the 200 Plus podcast from the boys too, talking about footballers and skills and stuff. You would have seen that in the group chat earlier.
No. What did they say?
Benny Raimondo, the producer, put me forward as they asked the question of the journos in footy right now, who would have the best skills as a pure footballer.
Okay. Seems like a weird topic.
No, you just brought up you've never seen me play. So.
We've talked about Moneyball in this pod before, but when I talk about Bailey Fritsch, it reminds me of this.
He can't throw and he can't field, but what can he do? Oh, boy. Guys, check your reports or I'm going to point at Pete. He gets on base. He get on base.
So he walks a lot.
He gets on base a lot. Rocco, do I care if it's a walk or a hit? Pete?
You do not.
I do not.
So, Mitch, a little bit like getting on base. Bailey Fritsch, whether, I hear a lot of, he gets a lot of Joe the Goose over the back and, he's a bit selfish and does it. Mate, he kicks goals. And in a game where goals win games, I like players who kick goals.
Dan Menzel kicked a lot of goals too for Geelong.
What are you saying about Dan Menzel?
Well, the defensive side of the game is the question.
I can't believe that. The drive-bys that you have been...
That's not a drive-by. You've got to defend now.
Didn't have knees by the end.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. The AK that Mitch has brought today.
He had one of the great games against Collingwood, though.
He was a super player, but the question is, does he defend and does he buy into the full 120 minutes of the game?
How much were we talking about his defending in 2021
That's
when
a
they
good
won
point.
the flag and he kicked 60?
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
That's when they had Spargo and Pickett doing a lot of the, Pickett's a midfielder now.
Does his versatility up in the forward line change anything? Play small, play tall. That's quite handy to have in the forward line.
Imagine, I'm going to say it again. Imagine Bailey Fritsch playing for Collingwood.
Yeah, that'd be good.
The bloke could kick 75. Imagine Bailey Fritsch getting like the defender behind Jamie Elliott as the mid forward. I'm just saying, he's 29 at the start of next year. I understand, to Lloydie's point, he's not going to cost you a lot, but I think the upside of Bailey Fritsch is huge. He needs a change of environment.
Yeah.
Melbourne probably need to be without him.
Yeah.
New way forward.
You're not getting a heap for him, though.
What are you getting?
Pick in the mid-30s.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cop that.
Yeah.
Did I see was it someone reported something about Warple, my man, this week?
Oh, I just spoke that it's still in a holding pattern. It still hasn't moved anywhere.
I see.
What have you got on it?
Picking out numbers at Geelong, I think.
Oh, it is getting late.
Picking out numbers.
It's getting very late in the season.
But hang on, wasn't there some big story about him re-signing? Or he's close to re-signing? Or I must have misread it.
Sam.
Anyone else on the whiteboard?
Draper's still not signed at Essendon.
Didn't we talk about this last week?
Yeah.
I had a missed call from his manager. I tried calling him back.
Michael Dowdy?
Yeah.
Was this after your comments on the show?
I assume so. He's going, right?
Or maybe we should call Michael Dowdy live on the show and get an update.
No, I think that would be unfair. I'm not sure anyone would like to hear some of my conversations.
Before we go, CEO's meeting on the Gold Coast right now. So a 2-day conference. I don't know if we'll get an answer on this, but we hopefully get a little bit of info in the next month or two about whether we see the sub removed for 2026 and beyond, and they go to 5 on the bench. I just wonder if we end up going to 5, whether that opens up the possibility of clubs going more often with 2 rucks. So you get the extra rotation.
Yep.
You know, you could play a pure ruck as a 50%, 60% player. So I just wonder whether that, if we do get that, and I think we need it sooner rather than later so clubs can plan for list management, but that opens up the conversation more around, you know, Jackson and Darcy. Because if we had 5 on the bench, I think that's a much more viable option for the Dockers than what it is now.
Yep, I don't disagree. I think
Can I just ask as a fan's view, why would 4 on the bench with no sub be different to 5 on the bench with no sub? Because next year, if somebody gets injured in concussion, they'll be saying the same issue, which is
Scott. It's an amazing question, and do you know what the answer is?
what?
I'll tell you what the answer is. The answer is that the AFL are way too scared of the coaches, and they've completely lost their power struggle.
But if they were scared of the coach, they would have changed the sub last year when all the coaches were asking for it.
Yeah, but the reason that the sub came in is because all the coaches were complaining that, oh well, we don't have enough levers to pull if and when a player goes down. Yeah. Well, how does the sub help that? Like
Well, if there's an injury in the first quarter, you're playing with 4 on the bench compared to 3.
Yeah, but that's not the reason. Like it was initially meant to be the concussion sub.
Yep.
Yeah.
Right. And then
There was too much grey area with it.
well, it wasn't even grey. Like, and then they made it the injury sub.
Yeah.
And
And
now
how do you
it's-
prove if a guy's got a hammy in the third quarter? Or
And
not?
now it's a tactical sub.
Yeah.
Like, if coaches want more players, well, just give them 5 on the bench. But to Scotty's point, once you give a mouse a cookie, he's going to want a glass of milk. Like, it'll just be, well, why don't we have 6 on the bench? Well, why don't we have 8 on the bench?
Yeah.
Well, fuck, we might as well just have the whole list available, ready to go. Like,
That'd
no,
be good.
4 on the bench. Like, it's the same for both teams. As long as it's the same for both teams, it can't be unfair.
But if you go from having 4 on the bench, you get an injury, and you're playing with 3 on the bench v4, or if you've got 5 on the bench and then you're going with 4 v5,
Yeah.
it dilutes the impact if you've got an extra number.
Oh, maybe.
And plus you've got 75 interchange to play with. So it's not like you're going to be
Yeah.
players going to be coming on and off more.
From my angle, they end up going, okay, we don't have enough interchange now, so we need
Exactly.
to update that. I just think, like, this is just from a purely fan view. We had the sub originally, got rid of it because everyone hated it.
Including the coaches at the time.
And then we brought it back. And then the only reason it's kind of stuck around is because of the fact it was eased in from concussion to injury to that. And now they just want 5. I just don't understand the 5 thing. That's just me.
Like, I was lying in bed on Sunday evening listening to 6PR's call of Freo St Kilda.
Wow.
I know, real grim areas for me.
That is.
Yep.
Wanted a parochial call, did you?
And I think Luke McFarlane
Yep.
was doing specials. And now I was very ill at the time, so I may have hallucinated some of this. But I think the conversation was around how Nat Fyfe wasn't going to be used as the sub.
Correct.
And,
Because he got injured warming up.
and therefore it wasn't going to count as a game. And therefore he wasn't going to go past Luke McFarlane on 244 games.
Does
I
it
think they
count
were
as a-
both on 244. Well, that's the question that I asked myself mid cough, which was, it mustn't count as a game if you don't come on, right? Like you don't
Yeah.
actually enter the field of play. Does it not count as a game?
I think you're right.
Yeah, okay.
Because there was a kid, Connor Downey, who played at Hawthorn a few years ago, who was the unused sub and never actually played, never stepped foot on a venue, but he played. He was suited up as an AFL player but never got on the ground.
And now I arrive at my point. What the fuck are we doing?
Well, how rare is it that a player gets injured in the warm-up as a sub?
But how dumb is the sub?
But it gets back to the point. If there's an injury in the first quarter of the grand final,
We'll just have 5 on the bench then.
yeah, but then, as you just said, we're wanting 6.
Well, just have 10 on the bench.
Apparently a game, it is counted even if you're the sub and don't play. So even Connor Downey
Really?
Did get a game added to his career tally.
Sorry, and then he did play a week later. So apologies to Connor Downey. He did. Sorry, not a week later. He played as the unused sub in round 1, and then got on the ground in round 22.
Without being disrespectful, it's the first time I've heard Connor Downey's name ever. And
But it does make like
and it's a pretty down way to finish the pod.
yeah. Oh, I hate the sub.
All right. Well, we finished in sort of very air raid areas. Be listening to the air raid. I'm passionate about the air raid this week. And be listening to Just Quickly. Hey, thanks, tradies. Sorry about the late drop and sorry about my voice. We'll see you next week.